Hi everyone, welcome to the BioEdge.
One of those factoids that one sees written up in biology textbooks is that the predominance of marsupials in Australia is partly a consequence of the isolation of Australia and the failure of more competitive mammals drawn from the Eutheria to reach Australia and to drive out the relatively primitive marsupials from their niches and replace them with these more advanced Eutherian forms. And that idea that marsupials are a kind of an archaic group, partly consisting of living fossils, is indeed borne out by real experience in Australia, because when advanced Eutherians such as the fox, the domestic cat, and several other species arrived, they really made short work of many marsupials to the point of exterminating them completely. And so there is some merit in this idea that marsupials are primitive animals and are relatively uncompetitive. And with this background, it's interesting to note that one particular marsupial genus, consisting of two species, the genus of marsupial moles, seems in some ways to go against the trend, because when you look at marsupial moles compared with placental moles of various kinds, one could argue that in several aspects, marsupial moles are far more highly evolved and, in a sense, far more advanced as moles than their Eutherian counterparts. And we go into this in this bio bullet. Of course, the marsupial moles retain the characteristic pouch of marsupials. And nobody's saying that marsupial moles would do very well outside their rather restricted habitat, which is both arid and sandy. But without going into the detailed morphological attributes of the marsupial moles, we'd just like to point out that marsupial moles appear to be able to cleave through sandy soil extremely rapidly. And unlike Eurasian moles, for example, they do not rely on a permanent burrow system. What Eurasian moles do is they put a fair amount of energy into constructing a burrow and tunnel system, but then they leave it open and they patrol it. They have a permanent burrow system that they patrol for animals like earthworms as prey. And so once the burrow is constructed, for a Eurasian mole, there's not that much work left to be done other than extending and maintaining the burrow system. But the marsupial moles that live in the sandy parts of central arid Australia have a lifestyle in which they're essentially burrowing every inch of the way their whole lives, and they do not seem to have any kind of permanent or even temporary burrow system to which they can return. And so they really have to dig anew every time they move forward. And that's partly because the soil in their habitat is so loose that it simply collapses behind them. Now, a similar sand swimming method of subterranean existence can be found in some of the golden moles in Africa, which belong to a completely separate group from the Eurasian moles. But the difference is that golden moles generally sand swim or swim through the earth very shallowly, just below the Earth's surface, where there's not the same weight of soil pressing down on them. Marsupial moles seem to be able to sand swim at considerable depth. And this seems to be possible because they have such extremely efficient foreclaws and other morphological features. And so the idea in this biobullet is that in many ways these marsupial moles, drawn from a group of animals that in general are somewhat archaic, primitive, and less advanced than Eutheria, are an exception in being perhaps the most consummate of all moles. And it's just interesting to think what it is about the Australian environment that has fast-forwarded the mole life form, as it were, into this super advanced form, which has no real counterpart in the deserts of the continents. So not only are marsupial moles extremely advanced and efficient moles, but in similar sandy deserts on all other continents, there is no niche for moles of this sort. And so in that sense, they have well surpassed the achievements of comparable eutherians. And with that thought in mind, we'll clock off for now, and we look forward to seeing you next time at the BioEdge. Bye.